Welcome to another edition of Globespan 24x7, owned and operated by Mr. Singh of New York and Guyana. And with us is technical advisor, program coordinator, Mr. Devin Bissoon. Tonight we are discussing Guyana's Republic Day as well as the budget. Today is Republic Day in Guyana, February 23rd. Guyana became a republic in 1970, so declared by the then ruler, Forbes Burnham, largely known, recognized, and described as a dictator of Guyana. With us tonight discussing Republican status as well as the budget are three very distinguished speakers. With us is Professor Paul Nehru Tennassee, no stranger to Globespan 24x7, as well as Dr. Turhane Doerga, who is a former businessman, although he said he's retired from business, but still serves as a consultant and advisor to several companies operating out of Suriname and Guyana, including a consultant for the Deepwater Harbor in Paramaribo area. And also with us is Mr. Mike Singh, who is also well known globally, having lived in the Middle East, Singapore, Southeast Asia. He is a chairperson of GTG in Guyana and operating out of Florida. He is a futurist personality, an entrepreneur, well known, and has appeared in this program several times before. Welcome, gentlemen, all, to this edition of Globespan 24x7. I will begin with first talking a little about the budget. Gentlemen, Dr. Turhane Doerga, you want to tell us about the budget before we move into Guyana's Republic Day celebration and what it means for Guyana?
I have read most of the budget or all of it, but I read it one more time. And one must compare it with what has happened in the past. And for me, this budget is the best budget I've ever seen in the 30 odd years that I'm coming to Guyana. It's well put together in the sense that I look at it from an entrepreneurial point of view. I cannot judge how they're going to finance it, but I know about some of Dr. Singh's work as an economist and Minister of Finance. So I'm kind of confident that he will be able to finance it. To elaborate a little bit on the budget, I'm impressed with the budget for agriculture and what they hope to do. Especially the Minister of Agriculture, I'm really pleased. Is the best minister I've ever seen in Guyana as Minister of Agriculture. So in general, I'm pleased with the budget. I look at it within the background, the document I wrote that is before the election is the roadmap to prosperity, and I can find myself back in the budget. Of course, the oil contracts and so forth is an issue also for me, but you cannot change Rome in 20 days, no? And so far, I'm not happy with certain things, but general, yes, the budget, I like the budget.
You want to tell us about some of the numbers? I mean, it is the largest budget, of course, in the history of Guyana. I think it's what, some $580+ billion?
Yes, that is why when I saw it, it is ambitious. It looks like an entrepreneur has put that budget together. But knowing the guys who are involved in putting the budget together, I think they have a lot of courage to put it in this way. But now we have the money to finance it. And that is the part which I cannot pronounce on. I'm not an economist, not an accountant. As entrepreneurs, we work with data we get from those people. And then we put projects together, we know, to find financing and so forth. So given this budget, I can give you an example why I think we should not have a problem with it, and I have asked Devin
Proceed.
to put up
Proceed.
two
Give the
graphs.
example.
Pardon?
Give the example or the illustration.
Yeah, I have asked Devin to put up two graphs I sent. I don't know if he can put it up.
While you, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, okay. If you see what is happening, the last dip there, that correlates with the pandemic, and that is what oil prices are doing at this time. Then the other graph is important. If you can see the consumption, it has to go a little lower. After the dip of the pandemic, the consumption of oil has now passed the last highest usage, and it will continue. Also, with what is happening in Ukraine, I expect the consumption to go up and the prices to go up as well. So we will have a windfall. The other thing I'm measuring on is that in the rice industry, there is a last crop, there was a windfall. Unfortunately, the farmers I talked to and so forth didn't see much of it, but it is there. And the coming crop, it is going to be a fantastic price. There's shortage, and that shortage is not going to go away. So in two sectors, it is good. Gold is good. Oil and gas, we have income, not what I had expected, but hopefully that will adjust itself in the coming years. And as I say, I believe in a democracy. The problem we have is that our parliament is a circus. The opposition, instead of analyzing it and discussing it with the people in power now and taking this country forward, it is a disaster. On the PPP side, I sometimes take offense on how they answer things, and it's always flashing back what happened and this and the other. To those guys, I want to say, gentlemen, the budget is fantastic. Let us build Guyana. Let us discuss the budget, adjust it where necessary. And the president has said the correct things. One of the things he said is that hemp will be a agriculture crop. So we're just waiting for the legislation. It was promised in November by the AG. It didn't happen, but now the vice president and the president has said that it will come before mid of the year. All I want to see is that the legislation is in such a way that that anybody who complies with the legislation can plant. I am against a licensing system because that will create nepotism, and we will be back to square one. Hemp is the future agriculture crop. Everybody knows that. Those who don't know, go to GuyanaHemp.com. We have petitioned Parliament since 2015. Now, hopefully, finally, we're going to get it through, and we can eradicate poverty with the arrival of the hemp crops.
Just before we go into specific crops, let's put the budget in context. You were really referring to the source of revenues for the budget. As we all know, some $600 million were taken out of the petroleum fund. I think that would be used to fund.
That's correct.
The $580 billion budget. So, and then you were also saying that sources of funds also came from other sectors of the economy, including the mining sector and agriculture. There was a bumper crop before the flood of May, June of last year. So I just wanted people to get that in context, and then we could talk about specific crops and so forth. So Mike, would you do you have anything to say about the budget?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I think the budget is gargantuan. It's huge. It's like unfathomable, that amount of money being spent. Regrettably, Guyana continues to be a resource-dominated country continues to, as I say, put all of its eggs in one basket. It's mining, it's extractive industries, oil, gas. These are all very cyclical industries that can be subjected to the vagaries of global supply and demand. What the government should be doing is spending more than it's doing on infrastructure. I'm in Guyana and getting around this place. It's best I bring in a drone and fly. The traffic situation in Guyana is out of control. I think we should start using the waterways more than the roads because it's a complete mess. The country, many of the roads are poorly lit. So I think they really need to do more with high power solar and LED. But I see their commitment to solving the perpetual electricity quagmire or nightmare. There isn't a single day you don't get a shutdown of one kind or the other. I've experienced at least 3 total shutdowns of the Berbice Demerara interconnected system. I don't know if the people running GPL are asleep at the wheel or it's just a situation of poor substation and transmission and distribution. That is going to hamper foreign investments in a big way. So the quicker they can get the ball to show on the road in terms of that gas to power project, be it by ship, be it by pipeline, it's really going to take a lot of pressure off of the public and our manufacturing sector. I was very impressed by President Jagdeo's remarks at the conference about being committed, about ensuring that development reaches all sector of Guyana. And of course, he was there, had an opportunity to speak with him briefly. He was, very affable, approachable. A number of government ministers at the conference were also very approachable. So I give them high marks for the conference, but there is a specific area, and you can look at it. Oil and gas is not going to drive the future. It's renewable energy. And I use the United Arab Emirates as a prominent example of this. In Abu Dhabi, we sit on 15% of the world's oil and gas reserves. Yet the UAE has gas-powered, energy. Gas as a source. We've got solar, we've got wind, and we've got nuclear. I don't know if many people know. We've got the Al Barak nuclear reactor in Abu Dhabi. So this is a country that's already transitioned away from oil and gas. Turhane talked about the conflict in Ukraine. It's inevitable. There is a full-scale Russian invasion on the way, and Guyana could become collateral damage because there are Russian forces in Venezuela. In fact, there was a face-off between the Colombian military and the Russian special forces operating in the Cauca border region of Venezuela and Colombia. Make no mistake, Colombia can defend itself. Colombia received in excess of 20 billion US worth of US military support. I'm talking here Black Hawks, Apaches, F-16s, the best combat-ready military force in Latin America that can go head-to-head even with Brazil. These people have been fighting drug wars. They provide special security services in the Middle East for a number of royal families. So we know Colombia can they will defend themselves, and they don't ask someone to come and fight the war. I don't know what Guyana is going to do. Are we going to talk about not a blade of grass? It's not going to get you very far. Our defense sector sucks. We couldn't even fight a swarm of mosquitoes if we got attacked. We have nothing here. And we're sitting under this illusion because it's oil and gas that the United States and Britain are going to come to your rescue. Well, that's a bit of wishful thinking.
But Mike, really and truthfully, why waste money on defense?
Yes. You know why?
We can't defend ourselves against.
Let me tell you. No one believed that Hitler was going to invade the Sudetenland in the late 30s. No one believed he was going to rape Austria with the Anschluss. No one believed he was going to put 6 million Jews into concentration camps. And no one believed in 1939 that he was going to launch an attack upon Poland. And together with the Russians, you remember it was the agreement between the Russians and the Germans that we're going to slice up Poland. No one believed the Japanese were not going to attack Pearl Harbor. No one believed that the Dalai Lama will be driven into exile when Chinese communist forces invaded his homeland in Tibet and decimated the Buddhist monasteries in 53. No one believed that Saddam Hussein was going to go into Kuwait. Right. No one believed in 79 the Russians were going to invade Afghanistan.
The point is well made. So in addition to...
Let me also add here, Vishnu, Ghana needs to do something that's important. Give every Guyanese at least 1 gigabit of high-speed internet access to every home for free. This is the only way we can lift people in this country out of poverty. There is a correlation between connectivity, bandwidth, and lifting people out of poverty. Women entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs. I mean, if Rwanda, which doesn't even have 1/10 of our wealth, can do it in Africa. And Rwanda has now become the #1 place for investment capital inflows into East and Central Africa.
Okay, so in addition to defense, you're suggesting government spends more money on internet connection,
for every home, free of
connectivity.
Charge.
There would be better education for youngsters.
That's right.
Who can help improve themselves, and through that, Guyana itself.
That's right. And may I also add, people can access e-government services. Don't tell someone go to a portal. No use you give them a broadband a device, but they don't have broadband. You need to it's giving someone a Ferrari, but you don't have the right type of fuel and the right type of roadway. So it's all nice. We're talking about, 25,000 here, 25,000 there. People in Guyana at this stage of their life don't need pity. They need an opportunity. They don't need aid. They need trade. And they don't need handouts. They need a hand up. And technology, as I can prove to you, is the greatest enabler and wealth creator. Silicon Valley achieved in 10 years in terms of wealth what the brick and mortar and old industrialists took 100 years to achieve. So Guyana needs to give every household at least 1 gigabit of free internet access.
I agree, but we have to creep before we could walk, huh?
No, there's no excuse. I don't buy into that. We can leapfrog. We can leapfrog. If Rwanda can do it, Singapore could do it, Chile can do it. There's no excuse. We've got the money.
But the government has committed to upgrade the internet service.
Well, the government doesn't operate as an internet service provider. It's providing some connectivity through the eGov and NDMA in some remote border regions and remote hinterland regions. But what the government needs to do is negotiate with GT and Tier Digicel and say, look, we want X amount for every household, get a wholesale price, and give every Guyanese household 1 gigabit per second. And I can show you that people will lift themselves out of poverty. We'll be able to unleash creativity. Farmers will be able to market their crops online. They'll be able to get real-time pricing. Look at India. India was a backwater for telecoms, but thanks to San Petroda, it's the fastest growing market in the world for 5G enabled services. I'm sorry, we've got the money, but we just can't sit on it and let people wallow in poverty. Spend it where it matters most. The most important resource in Guyana is not the oil, it's not the gas, it's the human capital. And if we don't harness this capital, Dr. Bisram, we're going to have more people leaving, and you'll have greater brain drain, and you'll have to import foreigners to do basic jobs. And I'm seeing that.
Okay. Dr. Turhane, you want to comment on the suggestions and offers of Mike Singh?
Yes, of course, I know Mike very well, and I learn every day from him when he takes a stand against Russia and China and so forth. However, he knows that I have a different opinion. For instance, China, call it what you want, but they have uplifted 900 million people out of poverty. So we need to look at it, how they have done it, and nothing is perfect. Human capital. Why do I like the budget? Why do I think that this government so far is doing a good job? 20,000 scholarships. You can, any Guyanese today, you can do from online schooling. You have opportunity now, and it is paid for. So it's what you said, Dr. Bisram. You can't change it overnight. Housing, 50,000 house lots are being allocated, and it is in operation. I am in Guyana. I see it. Only today there was a guy who said that yeah, the black communities are skipped and don't get flood relief and so forth. When we investigated, it was just propaganda, and there are enough examples where this government, when a thing like that happens, they investigate it and they try to correct it. So I'm not as pessimistic as Mike, although what he says is true. You need internet, you need to give people access to the world, but it's happening. Remember, 90,000 laptop computers were distributed. Everywhere I go in Guyana, and I'm not talking deep into the bush and so forth, but every community, everywhere I go, I have internet. It might not be the fastest, but it's there. I can go online, I can do things. And now with opening up the providers, allowing more providers, I think we will get there. So we're 1.5 years into this government. I think we should be reasonable and give them a little bit more time, because before them we saw 5 years of destruction, and I'm very open about that. I've never seen so much destructions like the 5 years before, and I had supported them. So there's nobody going to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about.
So, but in all fairness to Mike, he's not pessimistic. He's just offering some suggestions of how the government should invest some of the oil money into internet service, as well as expanding infrastructure. The government has committed. The government has
comment on that? Can I comment on that? The problem we have in Guyana, because I advise several international construction companies also in Suriname, we do not have locally the capacity to absorb that amount of work. So while we are pushing for local content and so forth, we have to educate our people. We have to create entrepreneurs. There are enough companies now teaching people how to manage. We have a backlog, so we are catching up. The reason why Mike will always remain my friend is because he gets things done. You know? He doesn't only say things. If he says this thing has to be done, he will move mountains to get it done. And he also listens, because he listens to me, what I have to say. We discuss things. We don't have to agree on everything. And that is what I'm missing in Parliament, what I'm missing with a lot of people who have responsibility in this country. And so don't worry, I also support Mike in his thinking.
Well, that's what Guyana needs: action-driven leadership. And if people like Mike are providing it, then all the better for the country. And in fact, the leadership of the country itself, the Vice President, the President, the finance minister and others, the rest of the cabinet, um, have an open arm about investment in Guyana. In fact, they're luring investors to come, as we learned from that conference last week. I don't know how many people showed up, but significant number, and I believe a lot of business opportunities, deals were signed. How much will bear fruit? I don't know, but I hope substantial amount. Any further thing, Mike?
Well, no, I thank Dr. Doerga for his vote of confidence. He knows I'm very action oriented. I'm very structured. I tell people the worst thing you can do is come to me in a meeting, you don't have your thoughts or don't have a notepad. And secondly, I hate sidebar conversations. I think the president, the vice president of Guyana, the minister of petroleum affairs, and others, they mean very well. But frankly speaking, there are a number of state agencies that should be supporting the whole oil and gas to power, gas to shore, power agenda. They're not moving at the speed. They need to be moving at the speed of light. The government is talking about yellowtail. President Jagdeo knows there is a limited window for oil and gas prices. That's why he wants them to drill and to exploit as much as possible. But what I fear with all this development, as Dr. Doerga said, we do not have the requisite absorptive capacity. I think, frankly speaking, you talk about local content, it's nice, but you might only have 20% of the required skills in country. So you will have to resort to a Emirati situation where in the 70s, right up to the 90s and 2000s, the United Arab Emirates was importing at least 80% of the talent required. But what they did, it's a process we call Emiratization, where high-level management, mostly they were British expats, Australian expats, Germans, and Indians that came in, and they basically started what I call a managerial and engineering apprenticeship program, where through the higher colleges of technology in the UAE, a large number of Emiratis were being schooled, and then they will be brought into these large companies like the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, Dubai Aluminum, Mubadala, which I've done a lot of work with and for the Sovereign Wealth Fund. They were brought in and they were placed directly under the expatriate leadership to learn. And after 4 or 5 years, the expatriate shifted out and then the Emirati stepped in. And now today you can't get certain jobs in the UAE unless you're actually Emirati, because that was their thing about local content. We just don't want to have low expatriates coming and run and the show. And what happens one day if this person dies, for lack of better word, or kick bucket, the show has to go on. So the government of the UAE instituted this whole policy of Emiratization. That's why today in the UAE's federal cabinet, you've got ministers on average the age of 36 or 38 years old. And they were all schooled in the UAE and abroad. So Guyana needs to start spending more. I would like to see us develop a local campus of Stanford and Carnegie Mellon. We've got the money and we need to create the talent in-house. If not, all these expatriates are going to descend and take every shilling they can, and we're going to remain poorer than where we started. So it's nice to talk about local content and ownership, but we need to put, as we say, feet on the ground, feet on the street, foot to the pedal, start educating people. A 20,000 scholarship is nice, but let's build a local campus of the Indian Institute of Technology, with which I'm affiliated at the IIT Roorkee. Let's get a local campus of the Indian Institute of Management, and let's produce the next Sundar Pichai. Let's produce the next Satya Nadella. We are a bright people, we are competent, but this country cannot develop with half of its population living abroad. In the UAE, there are more foreigners than Emiratis. And as I've said, Dr. Bisram, giving every Guyanese household at least 1 gigabit per second of internet access. It's not going to cost us anything much, but you will see the improvement in human capital, in human development, and in productivity. There's so many stats to prove this from the International Telecommunications Union, in the Global Broadband Commission where I have sat. I am chairing the upcoming Commonwealth Summit in Rwanda. I'm working on the Business Development Council's roundtable on the role of broadband in alleviating poverty. And there is a correlation, but we are not doing enough. We've got the money. It's not going to serve us any purpose just sitting in the bank billing hydro, and people in Guyana are perpetual victims of digital constipation.
Okay. Well, look, no doubt it's a very good idea. Yes, we should have our own universities to train our people. For the time being, we don't have any, and therefore the government is outsourcing training abroad at UE as well as in India and other locations. We have sought the assistance of the experience of the people of Ghana with regards to the oil and gas industry. The president, vice president, both are moving to have some local training done under quarantine. I understand the Port Moran Training Center will now do some training. Exxon, for example, has agreed to transform most, if not all, of the center towards oil and gas training. So, but you're right. Currently, most of the jobs are dominated by foreigners. They're getting all the big bucks. The local people are not making much money, and this has to be addressed. But the government has committed to addressing these matters. What I want to do now is take a break. When I come back, if I could hear briefly from the professor, if you could comment on what was said, and then we can talk about Republic Day celebrations. We're going to break now. Thank you.
The curry roti box is now available. Select your meal. Choose from chicken, duck, goat, or lamb curries, plus pepper pot, chicken tikka masala, lamb vindaloo, and roti. Your choice and your selection. Make up your own curry roti box. We will ship directly to your home or job. Unbox your favorite curries, rotis, pastries, plus order your favorite West Indian sodas and much, much more on allfromonesupplier.com. Treat yourself or send a curry roti box as a gift. Curry roti box is available with free shipping to all U.S. states and free delivery in New York. Order now your favorite curries, your fish, meats, pastries, sodas, and much more. Get all your West Indian and Indian food, plus your West Indian groceries from allfromonesupplier.com. It's free delivery and free shipping. Log on to allfromonesupplier.com and place your order today, or call 718-551-3292. Again, that's allfromonesupplier.com. Make your vacation a memorable one. Enjoy your trip just as if you are at home. Your music, your culture, and your way to have fun, with all you can eat and drink at an all-inclusive vacation. You choose the all-inclusive vacation that suits you. July 14th to July 18th is Bollywood on the Beach, plus Indo-Cultural in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. July 21st to July 25th, Christian Community Week in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. July 28th to August 1st, Curry Duck Curry Competition in Cancun, Mexico. August 4th to August 8th, Caribbean Throwback Week, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And August 11th to August 15th, Soca vs. Indian, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Seats are available from New York, Miami, Orlando, Atlanta, Newark, Canada, Trinidad, and Guyana. Meet up with family and friends, and plus make new friends at all these inclusive vacations. TravelSpan has your vacations, plus cheap seats to Guyana and Trinidad. Call TravelSpan today at 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. In Canada, call 647-5 557-6200. In Guyana, call 227-1701, and in Trinidad, call 645-1604. Dave West Indian Products is the only distributor of 100% authentic West Indian products. Dave West Indian supplies fish, vegetables, curry, spices, sodas, and coconut water, plus ghees and much more straight from Guyana and the Caribbean. For all your shopping needs, visit Dave's Guyana Fish and Grocery Market. Dave West Indian products are also available in West Indian stores, Key Food, and allforonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian has a full line of the most desirable products to fit all your needs. So visit Dave Guyana Fish and Grocery Market on 118th Street on Liberty Avenue, or in Maryland at 7505 New Hampshire Ave, or any West Indian stores or allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian, your 100% authentic West Indian product. Flights to Guyana have never been cheaper. Check out these non-stop direct fares from JFK to Guyana. One way from $150 and round trip from $344. From Guyana to New York, one way from $210 and round trip from $360. These are non-stop direct flights to and from Guyana on American, Caribbean, or JetBlue. These cheap fares will not last, so call Travelspan today. In New York at 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. In Georgetown, call 227-1701. And in Berbice, call 337-4287.
So welcome back, viewers, listeners, to Globespan 24x7. I am Vishnu Bisram, your host and moderator for tonight. You are watching Globespan 24x7, owned and operated by Mr. Nehru Singh, with technical operator Mr. Devin Bissoon. We will resume our discussion now. We'll have Professor Paul Tennassee give a comment about what was said before, and then we'll talk about Republic Day. But before we do that, let's watch this brief video.
Wonderful.
We are one Guyana, a place of peace, a place of love.
On behalf of Travelspan, Globespan 24x7, Dave's West Indian Imports, and Nest Restaurant, we would like to wish all Guyanese a very happy 52nd Republic Day. Guyana achieved independence from the United Kingdom on May 26, 1966, and declared itself a cooperative republic on February 23, 1970, abolishing its relationship with the British monarchy, but remaining a member of the Commonwealth. Guyana, our country, our home, land of many waters, is celebrating its 52nd Republic on February 23, 2022. This holiday is the National Day of Guyana and commemorates the birth of the Republic. There is also another name used for this day known as Mashramani. Mashramani, commonly referred to as Mash, is the most colorful, dynamic, inclusive, cultural and energetic of all the festivals in Guyana. Each year, since 1970, Guyana has observed its Republic anniversary by hosting a series of activities. These activities usually culminate on Republic Day, with a grand display of costume bands, accompanied by Caribbean music and watched by thousands of spectators. Guyana is a melting pot of cultures, and every celebration takes on some part of that melting pot.
We are one Guyana, this paradise is our home.
So Professor Paul, Nehru,
Well-
Tennessee, what a name.
Well, that was very nice. I really like that. And I would like to join with Globespan and with saying hello to all Guyanese and wishing Guyana well. Republic Day should be like Christmas. No matter how poor you are, at Christmas time, people make do with what they have and try to be happy. Life is about moments, and this is a moment in our history. At the same time, however, regarding the comments which were made previously about the budget, I've listened carefully, I've made notes. I respect the views of the two speakers. They're well known, they're very involved, they're very knowledgeable, but I've not read the budget, and I don't comment on stuff I don't read, but I intend to read it thoroughly. But when I do read it, I think people define the world from where they stand. My interest would be how Guyana would be transformed, third poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, into a country that could provide for its people in a self-sustaining way. When I look at Guyana after these 52 years, I look at the domination of two major political parties, and what they have to show today is a third poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So I hold a very independent worldview, always have had, and I don't make no apologies for it. I'm a patriot, and I believe one of the most important things that we face now is a challenge of the young people. The young people are the majority of the population in Guyana. The future of Guyana depends on them. We have been through 52 years. It's been 52 horrible years. We have had a sordid history, a history of fraudulent, a referendum which created a constitution that enthroned a dictator in the name of an executive president. We have had the country ravaged by a man named Rabbi Washington in the House of Israel. We have had a crazy preacher from America go to Jonestown and killed about over 1,000 people. We have had the assassination of one of the brightest Guyanese that ever lived, the author of How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney. And we still today, as I open the newspapers each day, accidents, crime, domestic violence, men are going crazy the way they're killing their wives, their girlfriends, murder, suicide, unemployment, migration, infrastructure breakdown, floods, corruptions, and blackouts. I teach a course once a month, each Sunday. I'm training 20 school teachers in Guyana in citizen diplomacy. I'm going to go visit them now. And the last class we had was cut in half because of blackouts. So we have some serious problems to face. So in spite of all this money, I would hope, and I have a very open mind. I know the president well, I know the vice president well, I know the people in the opposition very well. I don't hold anything against them, but I will look at the budget and I will ask some simple questions. Are we having growth without development? Are we having growth without jobs? Are we having a transformation of Guyana? Now, this is Republic Day, and I want young people to begin to learn their history. If our people do not know the history, they will not be able to develop a patriotic, nationalist, democratic, anti-racist consciousness and identity. And we don't have that in Guyana. And we have a lot of dispute and polarization about it. We have a big problem with, like it's happening all over the world now, fake news and real news, fake news and facts. So I wear my historian hat today, and I have to say that in 1970, when the Cooperative Republic was declared by Mr. Burnham went into the history of Guyana to the Berbice Rebellion. The truth is that had coffee and Akara and Atta and Akabre, had they succeeded, they held out for nearly a year. Berbice would have been the first republic in the Western Hemisphere before Haiti, the Haitian Revolution. They virtually had it in their hands, but they were not able to hold it because of division among them, but also because they did not have external support and they could not sustain the revolution. Now, what Burnham did at the time of independence and then in 1970, he used a book produced by P.H. Daly entitled Revolution to the Republic. Now, Daly did not have facts. He doesn't speak Dutch. He did not do any significant research in Holland, in the archives, and he invented a lot of stories, much of which I read, and you might have read, and others might have read, in Kaiwana series by Edgar Mittelholzer, where he used anecdotal references to the Berbice Rebellion. But now, for the first time, we have an authentic study of the Berbice Rebellion. I interviewed the author, a Dutch professor here in the Washington, D.C. metro area, who did it. Her book is Blood on the River. And in it, it shows very clearly that for us as Guyanese, we should embrace the Berbice Rebellion. as a very, very important, significant historical development in our country, and we must embrace it and hug it and learn from it, the mistakes and what has happened. However, what Mr. Burnham did was to take the Burmese Revolution, misinterpret it by base with Daley's work, and he developed an ideology of ethnic nationalism and made it believe that it had nothing to do with the other ethnic groups, just merely an Afro-Guyanese. It was a mistake. Burnham has been lauded for many things, but in that respect, he was very short-sighted and he made a strategic error. And in that sense, what he did, what Daley did in many ways, he took Burnham's personality and imposed it on Coffee. He didn't have information who Coffee was. This woman has information who Coffee was. And that statue, I always used to say in the 80s at public meetings, it's not Coffee, that's Burnham. He took Burnham's personality and imposed it on Coffee because he didn't have facts about Coffee. Anyhow, that era is over, but young people have got to study it because mistakes were made. When that did not work, PNC declared themselves Marxist-Leninists. They became communists. And and then they said it's cooperativism. Now, I just want to reflect very briefly on this idea. We are the first and only cooperative republic in the entire world. We are in the Guinness Book of Records. Okay, now, what did it mean? He says the cooperatives were going to make the small man a real man. It didn't happen. In those days, ordinary people of all ethnic groups usually say, what we have is a small comrade, a medium comrade, and a big comrade. The cooperative bank was supposed to have finance small people, like in small agricultural projects, like micro projects, like the guy did in Bangladesh, and these kinds of things. They didn't do that. The middle class rulers of the PNC took access and used their influence to access the money of the bank, and they ran it bankrupt. To buy houses, to go on vacations, to buy cars, and there were no cooperatives. It only had the name cooperative. Now, Dr. Jagan himself was against the cooperative because he says Marx, Engels, and Lenin had criticized cooperatives and that they didn't work because what they have to deal with is the role of monopoly capitalism. And you know, he was a self-declared Marxist-Leninist. So they had that problem. So Guyana, in these 52 years, have been unfortunate where we have been governed by and had governance by leaders who are ideologically confused and jump from one place to the other place and never was able to develop a clear national development plan to help us. The other thing is that we have not had no structural transformation. I studied the Dutch ruling class. From Lawrence Storm van Zande onwards, the British ruling class. We have not had no structural change in Guyana. All we have done is replace old wine in new bottles, and we call it new wine. Nothing has transformed. We are just where we were, even worse sometimes. In the 80s, when I went around the country, people were so desperate. They said, Paul, let us give back the country to the white man, which is a horrible thing to say. I opposed it, of course, but they did not say it because they mean it. Who would like to go back in conquest? Who would like to go back in slavery? Who would like to go back in indenture? Now, on another note, and the optimistic note, so I'm an idealist, there was no nation state called Guyana before 1966. This is a brand new creation of our ancestors from conquest, slavery, indentureship, 20th century colonialism. Guyana belongs to Guyanese, not to a small group in the PNC and the PPP. The wealth of Guyana should not be allowed to be hijacked, as has been over the years by a few. The Guyanese people have a right, and so we have to emphasize, move beyond the ethnic, and emphasize transparency, accountability, and we have to make sure that we cannot live in a country where we still have our brothers and sisters still in dire poverty. Look, it breaks my heart to see the suicide that is occurring, particularly in the Indian community. It is horrible. Young people, suicide, it's a horrible thing. And the statistics is that we are number one there. So I would like to see a leadership that is, you could tell me about all the millions you have in a budget. That don't impress me. I put 100 students to answer one question. How have the people in country X benefited from the oil revenues in the oil producing countries in the global south? Not one of them benefit. I have students from Angola, from Guinea, Equatorial Guinea. I taught about over 300 students from Saudi Arabia, from UAE, and from Qatar. So I know the issues. I know what oil is. I wrote a book on the history of the Venezuelan oil workers. I used to teach at the university there. I have a master's on Venezuelan contemporary history. I went to Dubai and I did a workshop with the leaders of the National Oil Company of Nigeria for 1 week, a workshop. And what I tried to do was to review the mistakes of Venezuela and the positive things about Venezuela and compare it with what was happening in Nigeria. And it's a difficult thing. It is not a catalyst. Oil revenues is not a magic wand that it just appear and you got all these billions of dollars, So all I'm saying is that yes, I agree. Any government that is democratically elected in Guyana, I support that government and respect that government in the sense that they were elected by the people of Guyana. But at the same time, I would ask, and I open my mouth and say that we have to have policies that will benefit all Guyanese. So that is where I stand, and I will look at the budget. I'll come back to this program to comment with others at some time when I analyze it and when I go down there and look at some of these. I want to see some movement on unemployment. I want to see some movement on all these social issues. Vehicles are used as a weapon in Guyana. People are committing suicide with it and killing others with it. And there's a breakdown in the society. Now, this didn't happen overnight. This has been happening over the years. But somehow I don't know where are the interfaith leaders, the leaders of the Islamic community, the Hindu community, and the Christian community. I don't hear their voice calling and appealing to the nation and doing programs that will rescue our people and bring them back and put them on an ethical path, on the right and wrong path. Young people in Guyana don't know what is right and what is wrong. And that's not only Guyana. Around the world, we have a lot of problems that are very similar. So I am very hopeful as an idealist, an optimist, and a patriot that Guyana will go forward. But Guyana will not go forward if we just surrender to a few people to run the country according to their whim, will, and fancy. Guyanese population have got to be educated. We need the population to have oil literacy. People have an idea how rice is produced, how sugar is produced, how gold is produced, how the forests get cut down and the wood is produced, and how we do fishing. But they have no idea about oil. And we need to teach our people that, because the more they know about it, they'll be in a better position to be able to make a contribution and to insist that oil becomes transformative in the lives not only of the entrepreneurial class, not only of the foreigners abroad, but of all Guyanese. Guyanese both at home and Guyanese abroad. Guyana is our inheritance. We didn't get it from two political parties. We got it from our ancestors. It is ours. And this is what we have to instill in this younger generation. And we have to have policies that will keep Guyanese at home. We have to have policies in the short, medium, and long term to keep the population at home because they're leaving. If not, the Guyana we know today would be a Guyana of Brazilians and Venezuelans and Trinidadians and other people, except Guyanese. Guyanese will be in New York, in Toronto, and in Washington and wherever. This is what the pattern is right now. So there are a number of things. And the last thing I want to say, Guyana cannot be developed with the elite of only one ethnic group. And Guyana cannot be developed only with the elites of two ethnic groups. Guyana has to be developed by Guyanese people on the whole. They have to be inclusive, and they have to be bigger than being so narrow-minded. Like this program. If I express an independent view, it does not mean I'm against the PNC and the PPP. It's just simply that I think differently. So what is wrong with that? Why can't we live to bear? I teach my students the argument for and against. Even when I was at high school, 14 high school, I was a debater. Wim Boys Club, I was a debater. I love the argument. I love the issue. What is wrong with that? Why can't we do that? I went all the way to the Oxford Union. I debated against Margaret Thatcher at the Oxford Union on the issue of South Africa. So I didn't agree with her. And I believe that our young people did not get the opportunities people like I had when we were growing up, where we knew a lot about boys' clubs and local government and the village office and all that. That is missing from their lives. So there's a big job ahead of Guyana. There's a role for everybody, for Guyanese at home and abroad. And it's not only the oil sector. I wish all those who were at the meeting of the oil there, but those people who they came from abroad, they didn't come there with a view to develop Guyana. They came with a view there to have a deal, make some money. And the poor people of Guyana were not on the corridors of that country. And they are not on the corridors of power. They still are trying, they don't even have their feet at the doorsteps of governance in Guyana. Local government is ineffective. It's a joke. It does not empower people. It does not give them a role in governance or at the table of governance. So we have to transform Guyana, not only from above, but also from below. So I wish Guyanese well on this 52nd birthday, but I say when I look at Guyana, I have to look at the plus, I have to look at the minus. But when I'm finished, like a professor always told me, Marlon Silverman, when I was a student at York University, and I wrote about Guyana and the Caribbean, and I spoke of vulnerability. She said, Paul, you're critical, but at the end you say, we have to pull ourselves together and we have to go forward and we have to make an effort to make Guyana a better place, the Caribbean a better place. Right? So that's my view today on the subject of the 52nd anniversary of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
So Professor, that's a very eloquent presentation, excellent summary. I have a few questions. Just to clarify a few things. February 23rd was chosen for Guyana Republic Day observance or declaration as a republic from the United Kingdom. On the heels of that is Forbes Burnham's birthday, February 20th. Is there any connection of why the 23rd was chosen? I remember in the 1970 or before that, there was talk of using Burnham's birth date as Republic Day.
Well, these are things that happen all over the world. Leaders are full of it. When people get into power, they get confused with it and they mix things up a lot. Burnham was an evil. I know that. I was kidnapped by the PNC dictatorship for 9 days, for 5 days and 5 nights, right? And I was set up also. The other political party issued a headline, gun runners on $1 million bail, guns coming for Tennassee and his outfit. So I arrived at the airport and I got kidnapped. But that's life. Yeah, but politicians are like that. They get idea. Look at this guy. Today is the Red Army Day. And they are entering a sovereign country called Ukraine, right? This guy, Putin, right? What is in his head? Why would he go and violate a little country like Ukraine? Now that has implications for us. I teach global political economy. I teach US foreign policy. I have nothing against the Russians. The Russians are extraordinary people. They made an extraordinary contribution to save the world from Adolf Hitler. But what he's doing there, he's a leader, right? There's no rational reason for him to intervene in Ukraine. My friend, I have all the statistics of all the nuclear bombs that Russia has. No country on earth can invade Russia. No, it's little Ukraine. No country on earth, even the United States, will attempt to invade Russia. Russia does not have a problem. Which country having all those nuclear warheads have a problem with defending their territory? Come on. The United States don't have a problem. They don't have a problem unless Bin Laden comes and pull the rug from under their feet. That's another story. But I'm saying that Russia does not have does not have a rational reason for having fear that Ukraine or could be used by NATO to intervene in Russia. They have too many nuclear powers. So why does a leader do something like that? How do you explain Hitler? I was looking the other day at a program of all these coups that occurred in the world, the Idi Amins and all these people. How did they get into office? How people allow them to get into political office? And when they get there, they do stuff like that. So if Fordham wants to make Republic Day his birthday, okay, it's okay. He also has the longest floating socialist bridge in Guyana, LFSB, Lyndon Forbes Santon Burnham. I see now that the president is going to get rid of that bridge and have another bridge, right? So I hope they don't have protests about that. So the bridge is named after him.
So why February 23rd, though? Any specific?
Well, I don't know. There was always some discussion. I recall during those days when I was home when they were discussing it about his mom's birthday, his birthday, and all that. That is not as important as the fact that he invoked the Berbice rebellion to legitimize his rule in Guyana. You know why? Because he stole the election in 1968. And 2 years afterwards, he established the Cooperative Republic. He couldn't make it. He couldn't build a statue. Burnham did not dare to build a statue of himself as Eric Williams, as Manley, as Bustamante, as Nkrumah, as Gandhi, as Nehru. No, he couldn't do that. As Kenyatta, because he knew that he was not the father of Guyana's political independence. So what he did, he went into the history of the Berbice rebellion, and he took Kofi out and made the father of Guyana's political independence. Kofi was the father of a republic that could have been, but he's not the father of Guyana's political independence. But he's our hero.
And just for clarification, he rigged the election of 1968, used that magic majority to declare Republican status and to break with the United Kingdom on the issue of judicial appeals and so forth, and establishing his own judicial system, having the PNC flag fly over the court and so forth.
At the first, it was a constitutional republic, a constitutional system, president, Arthur Chung, and then it moved to him in the referendum of 1979, he and Shahabuddin declaring the executive presidency, party paramountcy, etc., 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 that we are well aware of.
A referendum that was also rigged.
It was very fraudulent. Everybody boycotted it. It was a house versus the mouse, and the house won fraudulently. It's all documented. I wrote a booklet called The Case for Free and Fair Elections in Guyana. I documented with facts accurately all the rigged elections up to 85. Hoyt was also an electoral bandit.
Including the 1968 fraud.
They're electoral bandits when you steal elections. You know, in 1985, I participated in the elections, and I tell you, a day follow night, we won about 10 seats. The politics of Guyana would have been different. I had 23 candidates in Linden, 35 polling agents. PPP didn't contest in Linden. I had a lot of young people. You know, you used to go to the country, you heard, a lot of people know that. But they sent the military and took all the boxes. It was a bandit, an electoral bandit. But these are facts that Guyanese have got to overcome this ethnic phobia that they have. And if there are Indian leaders that have contradictions, they have to accept it. And if there are Afro-Guyanese leaders that have contradictions, that have hurt Guyana, they have to accept it, they have to discuss it, in an open way. That's the only way our people could come to some kind of minimum consensus about our history. We see what's happening in America now on that, regarding the ethnic issue and the whole problem. I teach at a historical black college, and I wrote a book on the only surviving African American labor union in America. I have 100 years of the history in my computer to continue to publish their work. And this is a big issue for us. We teach black politics. I teach black politics at the University of Columbia. So the issue of race is a very powerful issue, but it could destroy a people. And until now, we have not been able to put our arms around the races. And the leadership have got to have more empathy. They have to have more accountability, more transparency, and a greater commitment to really, really pulling the people together. And you know, the most powerful thing against corruption, the most powerful thing about racism is one simple word: example, example, example. It is not the speech. It is not the message. Often it becomes a messenger. And so leaders have got to be ethical. There have to be some morality. We can't ask the young people to be ethical and moral and you misbehaving.
That's right.
You know, you follow what I mean. So but I keep saying that the leadership of the Hindus and the Christians and the Muslims, I had expected that I would have heard those voices calling upon the leadership of the country to set examples and so. You know, I used to, in the 80s, I tried to help when we had a difficult time of trying to get out of the race issue. I was promoting Bishop George as a temporary consensus candidate. I used to meet him a lot. He was a guy you could find, he had a sense of spirituality. He had a sense of decency. You know what I mean? We need to see more of that, because I don't think you'll get it from the politicians. You have to pressure politicians to be ethical. You have to pressure politicians to be honest. You have to pressure them. You have to pressure them. But we expect that the religious leaders can set an example and bring that pressure by practice, not by just speech. I might be wrong, but this is how I see it. I see that you cannot transform Guyana unless we have both an ethical and a moral transformation. And may I add spiritual? And I'm a Catholic, but I'm not a religious fanatic. But I pray every day. I believe in the power of prayers and that kind of thing. Because I used to serve at the altar. I went to Catholic residential college in Oxford and so forth. And I consider myself a leftist Christian. I am always progressive, you know, extremely progressive. I'm in the progressive part of the Catholic Church. For years, when I went to study in Venezuela, we call it Izquierda Cristiana, leftist Christian. We said that if you're a Christian, you have to be a revolutionary. You have to believe in change. A revolutionary is not a person going about shooting people. It's a person committed to constant change. There's only one thing changes under the sun: change, change, change. And you don't, if you accept the status quo, then we accept poverty, we accept suicide, we accept domestic violence. So while all these things are in a society, even if it's 2%, 1%, 0.5%, we have to raise our voices and we have to say, we have to deal with it. In Guyana today, we are the third poorest country in the hemisphere, struggling with all the problems that the developed countries have. All the problems we have in Guyana are here in America. All of them are here. And so it's a big challenge for us. But I think we could do it. But we have to challenge both the leaders in the entire society, and not only politicians, but the entrepreneurial leadership, the social leadership, the NGO leadership. You know, we have to challenge each other. We have to try, you know, none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
So that's
so
where,
Paul, let's hear from the other two speakers first.
Yeah. I think,
but that was excellent points, Paul. Thank you so much, Dr. Doerga.
You know, I want to give a different perspective on
Please.
on the findings of Professor Tennassee. And I compare it with when I came to Guyana for the first time in 1988. And indeed, you could not find a house with proper paint in Guyana. There was no gasoline. There was no bread. It was a dire situation. But the thing is that you have to turn the page. And if you don't turn the page, you live in the past. So it's good to, and I endorse what Professor Tennassee is saying, that you have to educate. The children have to know their history. So I wrote a few things here. Dr. Tennassee, I just picked up this book in Holland. I don't know if you can see it, but the Dutch.
I would love to have a copy of it, but it's in Dutch.
Yeah,
It's in Dutch.
and
So
then you will
translate
see
for us.
then you will see it's about a Dutch researcher who went through all the reporting from between 1500 and 1850, and then you can see. I would say that if I read this, the guy who was the powerful liberator was not Coffee but Atta.
Okay.
Coffee got betrayed by, he wanted to so have the governor's wife, governor's daughter. So that's one of the things where we have to teach our people what history is. The other thing is that talking about history and turning the page. One of the things I really would want to turn the page is the Wismar massacre. And then come the question, Indian people were massacred. Nobody is going to tell me it wasn't so, because I have family in Guyana. And about 2 months ago, I went to a place called in Paramaribo in Suriname to meet those people who fled and got refuge from the Dutch government, Netherlands at that time. And it's called New Charlesburg. And I met those people. A lot of their children are now highly educated. Some migrated to Holland. I met 2 of them who are members of parliament. And those are descendants from that massacre. Now, my question to Dr.
So Dr. Doerga, just for clarification, we're referring to the May 26th, a massacre, an expulsion, genocide of Indians in Wismar, who were expelled from that community, and they came to the Georgetown area, and then some of them went to the quarantine and to Suriname and so forth, as a result of their experience in Wismar. That's what you're referring to.
Yes. So
and
my
it happened on
question,
May 26th, which also was chosen as a day of independence by the dictator Forrest Burnham.
So let me tell you what it is, and this is where I agree with Professor Tennassee that we need to teach history. I was in Corriverton, and I told my aunt of 97, I'm going to Tong, and this was last year, because I'm going to celebrate Independence Day. And she told me, Beta, you don't know that they kill Indian people on that day too? So I start to ask the question, but Jegan and all these leaders are celebrating this day without ever mentioning or have a 1 minute silence for those people who were massacred. Why is this atrocity going on? So I hope that this year, Independence Day, that we have a 1 minute silence for those people, because if you don't learn from the past, you can't shape the future properly. So far, what I agree with Professor Tennassee. The other thing is that I am saying that you have to look at the future. I compare it with 1988. If I take a helicopter view, Guyana has come a long way. Unfortunately, you cannot blame people for trying to seek security. Let me give you an analysis of the rice industry. When the price is raised, the government mills were privatized and so forth, people start to make massive money. We research it, what really happened, because I also lecture, I do guest lectures all over the world. And it is Guyana's unique, because what we have seen is that people would not forget 28 years of Burnham, especially the Indian people. So what did they do when they start to get massive amounts of money in rice? They took the money to New York. They could show the American embassy that they were doing well. They get the visa. They went to America. A lot of them. I know the statistics. I won't reveal it here now because it's part of a book. And what they did is one way or the other got American passports of green card, and then they came back to plant. But now those guys, their industry here is financing development in America. Then you have the middle group, you understand, which remain here but can't get out of it because the guys from the diaspora come here and they control the politics within their party. Then you have the bottom group, which is about 20%. Those people, and I dare to say it, they drink rum, beat their wife, and when their wife look at the neighbor, they drink Cramaxone. So there's a social problem there. So it is complex, but all I'm asking is let's take a helicopter view. We're progressing. And I want to finalize with saying, let us look at 2014. A race-based party cannot win an election anymore in Guyana. So 2015 was won with those 20 to 30% swing voters, which are of all ethnicity or races. 2020, the PPP won with the same swing voters. They would also only win with one seat. That tells me that Guyana is evolving. And when I look at the small parties, I supported one of them. 3 months campaigning still delivered them a seat. What do you think will happen in the coming election? The AFC would have been the third force to balance things off. Unfortunately, they betrayed those people who voted for them exactly for that. So the coming election is what I'm saying. The budget is fantastic. If they don't fix the oil contract, Guyana will vote. And I'm sure Guyanese will vote to make a further change. So I'm more optimistic than Professor Tennassee about Guyana. The oil sector, because I'm involved in both countries, I see how Suriname is doing it. I see how Guyana is doing it. In Suriname, you have much more transparency. Here, it is a Exxon fiesta. And let me be very clear. I'm happy that Exxon came to this country. If they didn't come, we would not have had oil. The people should judge things on the correct merits. The first contract signed clearly state that when you find oil, come, we go renegotiate. Unfortunately, when they found oil, they wait to declare it to see who is going to win the election. And then they got a sweet deal. Mr. Trotman, I hope he's listening. I hope he can live with himself. What I can't stomach is that there's not enough emphasis made to fix that contract. And I'm saying this, Guyanese are not stupid. They have evolved. Everybody has a cell phone. They have a diaspora. So if the coming election, that oil contract is not fixed, you know, Guyanese will vote, trust me. And that is why we have to preserve the democracy.
Let's hear from Mike Singh now. Mike?
Thank you, Professor Tennassee. I am sorry that I never knew you were kidnapped and held by the PNC. That must have been the very dark days of Forbes Burnham, or was it during Hoyt?
No, Burnham, 1983 is when Paul returned to Guyana and was picked up.
I returned in 82, but without the kidnap was 84.
So I'm quite repulsed by this type of behavior. Regarding the Ukraine, yes,
and by the way, he was stripped naked and put on an ant's nest, huh, Paul?
What you said?
You were stripped naked and put on an ant's nest.
Well, I had my underwear, my bukta on.
What the hell? This is terrible. You know, it's the kind of tactics Pol Pot would engage in.
Was it
Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge man, Pol Pot, who murdered so many people in Cambodia, where they found literally rooms of human skulls. Um, I, regarding Russia, Russia is the largest country in the world. She's got the most ICBMs, but I can tell you, Putin will not stop at the Ukraine. He sent troops into Belarus because he wants to invade the Baltic republics, and that will be a mistake. All three of the Baltic republics were invaded by the Russians immediately after they were liberated from the Nazis at the end of World War II, and the Soviet Empire invaded them under the good old man Stalin, one of the most evil persons to have walked this planet, along with Hitler and Mao Zedong, cold-blooded murderers. But this will not happen. I can tell you Norway has already activated her long-range bombers. NATO will repel any invasion west of Ukraine, or anyone attempting to go into the Baltic republics. They're members of NATO. There is a common understanding, and this goes back to 9/11, that an attack on one is an attack on all. Secondly, let me tell you, with the Russians, they're
Mike,
going to
Mike, Mike, we don't have much time.
Yeah, but let me wrap
Let's
this up.
talk about Guyana.
Yeah, but Guyana could become collateral damage because they're Russians in Venezuela, and most people in Guyana are thinking we're going to sing Kumbaya and this problem is going to go away. The Russians got a good cuttass in Afghanistan that they will never want to face an Afghan again. I lived and worked in Afghanistan, and I saw what the Mujahideen did to them. A ragtag bunch of people ably supported by Charlie Wilson and Ronald Reagan. And I salute Jimmy Carter for this one thing. He did give support to the Mujahideen. And say what you want, those people stood up and fought the naked aggression of the evil empire. Had it not been for Ronald Reagan, the Russians would have taken over, the Soviets would have taken over half of this world. I don't know if Biden has really got the testicular fortitude like a Ronald Reagan, but the United States, in moments like these, we stand together. This is not going to be just a conventional war. It will be a war in cyberspace.
Mike, we got to wrap up. So if you could just do a brief summary and conclusion. And
Well,
the other two.
The bottom line is Guyana needs to start thinking about its own defense, spending more money on human capital, spending more on resilient infrastructure, because we're not going to move the needle. As the learned professor said, development must be people-centric, must be human-focused, and human dignity, as far as I'm concerned, it is an uncompromising thing. I'm a believer in the Gandhian philosophy, but that does not believe I must turn my cheek and allow you to run over the borders into Kashmir. China is an evil entity. There is a new Cold War, and Guyana has to get off the fence and choose on whose side she's with. Guyana can't say we want to be non-aligned. Non-aligned is the Swedes and Canadians. You've got lots of American investments in your waters and in your backyard. So if you know where your bread is buttered, you better get off that fence and get in line with Washington. Because if the Russians attack, the Chinese are not going to come to your rescue, or anyone else. You'll be left. It's the Americans who are going to have to show up. Could someone tell me when was the last time you got a Christmas barrel from Moscow or Beijing?
Fair point. Doerga, Dr. Doerga, you want to give your summary point before we move to the learned professor?
Yeah, well, Mike is Mike. Mike don't like the Chinese. Mike don't like the Russians. but I am not afraid of any Russian invasion here in Guyana and so forth. So we have 750,000 people. We're a member of the United Nations. So I'm looking towards the United Nations to do what they had promised to do when they started the United Nations, especially when it concerns smaller countries. If you're going to start militarize here, what are we going to do? Instead of building this country spending all the money into F-15s and missiles and so forth. We ought not to do that. You understand? And I am a living example of it. When everybody said Chavez was a bad guy and we couldn't sell the rice for proper prices, I initiated the rice for oil deal. I met the guy and so forth. For over 100 years. There was no big hostility. Now and then, every time when politicians feel they need attention, then they bring in some border dispute and that type of nonsense. At this moment, it's about the oil. You understand? So Exxon is here. Exxon has to be protected. So the Americans will not let happen what happened in Venezuela with Exxon. So I'm not afraid of that invasion. You understand? So
I'm sorry, Professor Paul, Nehru, Tennessee, your final thoughts, words.
Well, my final thought is that, like everybody else, I would like to pray and hope that Guyana will go forward. I still believe the future of Guyana is in the hands of the young people. They are the majority of the population. I'd like to see more work done with them, empowering them, giving them opportunities, developing their consciousness to love Guyana and to want to serve Guyana. I'd like to see policies to keep Guyanese in Guyana. And I'd like to see that all Guyanese are treated with an even hand, regardless of race, or because people are discriminated against in Guyana, not only because they're African or some other ethnic group, because there's a hegemonic rule by an Indian group currently, but people are discriminated against if they don't belong to a ruling political party, whether it was the PNC or the PPP. So discrimination has many colors. We have to bring an end to that. Guyana is too small. It's less than 1 million people and so forth. Now, the oil is great. I'm happy that we have so much oil, but it really doesn't fascinate me because I've seen it in many other countries and people are living for less than $1 a day. And a few people get rich, stinking rich. You know, Carlos Andres Perez in Venezuela, a guy wrote a book. I have it in my library. It's called Venezuela Saudita. He had Carlos Andres Perez face, and on his head was the garb or the headpiece of the Prince of Saudi Arabia. He called it Venezuela Saudita. A lot of people talk about us having going the way of Dubai. But some of these people have not been to Dubai. They are slaves in Dubai. They are people indentured in Dubai. The people who come from the other parts of the world, they can't even get a visa. They can't become a citizen. I interacted with them. They can't even bring their wives and that kind of thing. That's not the kind of Guyana that we want. Guyana is about freedom. That's our story. We have always been permanently in quest of freedom during the colonial time and after the colonial time. And we have to understand that. But that freedom must be transformed into our people being able to lift themselves up, want to stay in Guyana and develop Guyana. I think there's hope for Guyana in that respect. But you're not going to get Guyana going forward unless the people of Guyana put more pressure on the leaders, not only those in government, those in opposition, not only those in politics, those in business, because the businessmen corrupt the politicians too. And it's the vice versa. So, it's a chicken and egg situation. And the people themselves sometimes, the first thing they want to do is bribe somebody to get a passport or something because they don't want to stand in a line or something, So we have a big problem in Guyana, but we need a leadership that will sit down and reflect and think a bit about the responsibility that they have. They have to set an example. I think we have to establish the highest the highest prerequisites for leadership. Those who are there, even if all of us have defects, but they got to make up their mind to change, right? Corruption is the use of public office for private gain. Corruption is the use of public office for private gain. They got to make up their mind. If they want to make money, go in the private sector. But if you're going to go into politics and you're going to go and promise people that you represent the common good, by God, you have to do that. But only the people of Guyana can hold them to it, And I think we have had some leaders in the past who are not corrupt. I believe Dr. Jagan, that's what I shared with him, an idealism and not an obsession with private property. You follow what I mean? He lived a simple life. I'm not saying that these guys should have the big house and all that, but they should work for it, not on people's back. You know, they're taking little boys on the street if they pick a pocket or they steal something and they lock them up. But these pickpockets that are in public office for the 52 years, I don't see any of them going to jail. And they take the property and they throw it in the eyes of Guyanese. You know, I told a former president, I interviewed him on television. I said, bro, I told his wife too at a hotel here. I say, in America, if you build a big house, nobody knows, nobody pays notice. A big country, nobody. In Guyana, if overnight you get a big house, people say, where you get the money from? And if they knew that you used to ride a bicycle a couple days before and now you have a big limousine, it's either drugs or it's either using public office for private gain. And this is not only one political party. Let us be clear about that. Bonham was an evil man. He used to do the same thing. He thought he was like Idi Amin. He thought the treasury was his. And he was a horrible man. You know what Bonham used to do when he wanted to discipline a minister? He put them to kneel down. Bonham had ministers kneel down as punishment at his house on the East Coast. I have evidence of that.
We got to close up.
We have some horrible leaders in Guyana, but the people of Guyana have got to say to the leadership that they have to maintain a standard. And it depends on the people. We have to empower the young people that they have to do. They're the majority.
All right, Paul, that'll be the last word. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for taking your time off from your very busy evening schedule to join us this evening. And I want to thank the viewers and listeners for watching Globespan 24x7. I'm Vishnu Bisram. Good night. Goodbye. See you next time.
Yes, Guyana to the world. Your boy Anil Aziz. Alongside me is Rapana. Hey. She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana, with wonderful people all over this country. She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana, with wonderful people all over this country.
Listen up, everybody, come and see Guyana. The river flow through the land of waters. The single drop fall from the Cairo top. Let me take you back to the gold shot. Flying high in the sky, let the whole world see. Let the whole world see. Let the whole world see. Green, red, yellow, black and white's the place to be. The place to be. The place to be.
One Guyana with many flavor, 6 different people blended together. Raise your flag high in unity, we're family with one destiny. Raise your flag high in unity, we're family with one destiny. She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana, with wonderful people all over this country. She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana, with wonderful people all over this country.
We're all God's creation, the children of the nation. We can make a difference with high expectation. Rap and a hit to say, people lead the way. You and I are the future and we're here to stay. Flying high in the sky, let the whole world see. Let the whole
country. She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana, with wonderful people all over this country. With wonderful people all over this country. With wonderful people all over this country. Hey, hey.